My grandfather spent 40 years engineering a system most people never thought about, and never had to, because it worked. 180 acres of protected marshland along the Gulf Coast. A precise network of canals, levees, and floodgates, each one positioned with intention. To outsiders, it looked like muddy wetlands going nowhere. To the communities downstream, it was the reason their homes stayed dry during hurricane season. My family had protected that land for over 70 years. I had the deed, the journals, and the survey maps to prove it. Then I drove out one morning and found bulldozers where the marsh grass used to be. Concrete foundations, tower cranes, nearly 100 luxury homes already framed out and rising on my property. No notice, no negotiation, no record of my family's name anywhere on the construction signage. The project manager didn't even flinch when I confronted him. The HOA, he explained, had legally purchased this land years ago through a development company. I unfolded my original deed right there on the hood of his truck. He refused to look at it. That's when I understood what I was actually dealing with. Someone hadn't just built on my land. Someone had forged an entire chain of ownership to make it disappear. I went straight to the county records office with every document my grandfather had left behind. An elderly clerk began comparing my paperwork against the digital files and stopped cold. Decades of property records had been quietly replaced with fraudulent documents. The original records had been scrubbed, but they missed something. Tucked in a filing cabinet that had never been digitized was an old survey map, hand-drawn, stamped, and legally recorded, showing my family's exact property boundaries and every flood control canal my grandfather had engineered. It had survived because no one knew it existed. I hired an independent survey team the next morning. 3 days. Every boundary marker, every buried corner pin, every easement line measured and documented. Their final report confirmed what the old map already showed. The entire development, every foundation, every road, every luxury home, sat on land that legally belonged to me. But the survey uncovered something far more alarming than a property dispute. Every single home had been constructed inside a protected floodplain. The very floodplain my grandfather's drainage system was specifically designed to manage. Engineers had warned about this site during the planning phase. Those warnings had been buried to keep the project on schedule. When I presented the survey results to Karen, the HOA board president, she laughed, told me her family had powerful attorneys and strong political connections, told me money had a way of solving these kinds of problems. She genuinely believed that influence outranked law. My attorney filed an emergency injunction within 24 hours. The judge set a hearing for 48 hours out. The HOA ignored the notice and kept building. Their strategy was simple. Finish the neighborhood fast enough to make reversal politically unthinkable. It didn't work. With court authorization, I reopened my grandfather's original irrigation gates and restored the historic drainage channels exactly as his engineering journals had specified. Nothing more, nothing less. Water returned to its natural path across the floodplain. By the following morning, several neighborhood roads had standing water. Engineers called to the scene explained it plainly to homeowners. The restored canals were functioning exactly as designed. The problem wasn't the water. The problem was that homes had been approved for construction in a zone that decades of engineering records had explicitly flagged as off-limits. Karen stormed across the flooded street and accused me of deliberate sabotage. I unfolded the original floodplain map and pointed to the highlighted warning zone, the same zone her HOA had approved for luxury development. Every county official standing there reached the same conclusion before she finished her sentence. News helicopters arrived before noon. County investigators subpoenaed years of permits, HOA communications, and internal engineering reports. What they found in those emails was damning. Repeated warnings from the HOA's own consultants that the site was inside a protected floodplain, dismissed one by one as a construction timeline accelerated. The developer eventually admitted those early reports had been set aside to keep the project moving. At the final court hearing, independent experts presented survey records spanning more than 70 years. The judge didn't need long to deliberate. The ruling was unambiguous. My ownership rights have been violated. The original drainage system must remain operational, and responsibility for the development's location rested entirely with those who approved and promoted it. Homeowners began filing claims against the developers and HOA board immediately after. Most said they never would have purchased if the floodplain history had been disclosed. They had invested life savings into homes built on land that should have never been sold. Environmental crews restored the damaged wetlands within weeks. The marsh recovered exactly as the engineers predicted. The coastline downstream remained protected, just as it had been for 70 years before anyone decided a profit margin was more important than a floodplain map. I stood beside my grandfather's original floodgate the evening after the ruling, and thought about what he used to tell me. The marshland isn't something to fight. It's something to understand. He was right. It always had been. The county formally restored my property boundaries and recorded every historic drainage easement in the public record. Permanent markers were installed so future generations would never face the same manufactured confusion. Karen stood near the restored canal as engineers explained the floodplain maps one final time. There was nothing left to argue. The greatest victory here wasn't a courtroom ruling. It was making sure that what my grandfather built, a system quietly protecting an entire coastline, would keep doing its job for generations to come. Sometimes the oldest maps tell the most important stories, and sometimes the land itself delivers a verdict. If this story hit home, drop a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. New HOA battles every week. Tell me in the comments, where are you watching from?